Welcome to Newsmakers on CHCH Podcast, where we are joined by notable residents in Hamilton, Halton, and Niagara discussing the issues and topics of the day. I'm your host, Louis Butko, and today's show, very pleased to be joined by community activist Kojo Damptey. Born and raised in Ghana, Kojo came to Hamilton to study at McMaster at age 17, and he has been here ever since. He's well known in the Hamilton for his anti-racism work, including previously serving as executive director for the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion. This time last year, he was campaigning to be a city councillor in Ward 14, finishing second by less than 100 votes. He's also a sessional instructor at McMaster and an accomplished singer-songwriter, having just put out his third album, Radical Thoughts, which was released earlier this month. Kojo, thank you so much for joining me and being the first ever guest on the Newsmakers podcast on CHCH Podcast. Thanks for doing this, man.
Thank you very much. I appreciate being the first.
There you go. Okay, so we talked about that. I want to get right into that. You kind of laughed when I said I wanted to talk about this, but 1 year ago today, you were in the midst of a heated city council campaign. We know what happened during the campaign, but what did you learn about that experience, and what did you take away from being a candidate for office?
I learned so many things. I think the first thing is that residents of Hamilton want a city that functions and a city that responds to their needs. Right now, or a year ago, people were talking about how high their property taxes are. Fast forward to this year, housing, inflation, groceries, what have you. It's become very pertinent to respond to what residents of Hamilton are dealing with. So I think that was the number one thing, is that they want their city to respond. The second thing is they also want innovative leadership, right? They want elected officials that can solve the complex problems that are facing our city and even the province. I think we'll be talking about some of them here today. So they want innovative leaders that not only stick to partisan points or just like catering to people that support their ideas, but bringing people together and saying, how do we solve this? So I think that'll be the second thing. And the third thing too is that, municipal politics is very different, but at the same time too, it allows people from different perspectives and backgrounds to come together to talk about solutions. I spoke to people about LRT at the doors. We spoke about parks. We spoke about streets. We spoke about fire, policing, all the different things that the city is responsible for. And so many residents had really different and interesting solutions. Even the idea of providing free transit for seniors. That was something that came up. And I think an idea like that is really helpful because you have seniors age, I would even say 60 and above, that they are not working as much, but they have to go to doctor's appointments. They want to go to the mall to maybe exercise at the mall, right? So it would be great to have them jump on any HSL bus to get to wherever they need to go.
There's a feeling of independence,
yes,
too, with seniors. And again, like we're talking people who don't feel like they need to rely on somebody to pick them up. And if they can't afford it, we've seen Burlington introduce free transit for seniors. Just on the topic of City Hall, was it difficult for you? I mean, it's tough. It's tough losing, right? And it's again, I hate to put you on the spot here. By the amount you did, was it harder for you to turn your attention back? Because you still are, at the end of the day, a community activist, somebody who cares about this city. Was it hard for you to turn your attention back, or how was that? Was there a switch you had to flick? Or
it wasn't hard. Look. I tell people this, when I made the decision to run, you have to accept the fact that you're either going to win or you're going to lose. So you have to be comfortable with whichever option happens. So the main thing was, do you put your best foot forward to tell people why they should vote for you? And I think I did that. I can say, we knocked on 90% of doors in Ward 14. So I can speak with a level of confidence to say this is exactly what people wanted. And it also showed in the results. So, and quite frankly, regardless of whether I ran or not, I've always been someone that really wants to make the city better.
Yeah.
We live here. If it's not better for us, we have to make it better for the young folks, for folks that are coming up, seniors, the whole gamut. So for me, my mantra is whether I'm a resident or running for office or teaching or whatever else I'm doing in Hamilton, I want to make this city better for any and everyone.
So you're not taking running again for something else off the table right now? Not to put you on the spot. I know the next municipal election's 3 months away or 3 years away.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it didn't turn you off the idea of running for anything.
No, it didn't turn me off. And look, the last election was a pivotal election for everybody, right?
Yep.
You had previous councillors that had been there for a long time. Residents wanted change. I hate to use that word, but they wanted, maybe I should say this, they wanted something different.
Yeah.
Right? So, yes, it was pivotal. I was happy to be part of it. I think our campaign was one of the most monumental campaigns. People still talk about it, but look, I like to live in the present. Right now, I'm teaching. I'm doing other stuff in the community that's also important. So those are the things that I'm focused on right now. And we'll see what happens in the months and years to come.
Well put, Kojo. All right, let's get into some of the news here. And this one's a few months ago, but back in April of this year, and this is from your work, the Hamilton anti-racism work that you do. Hamilton Police Services put out a report that said hate incidents and hate-related criminal offenses were up 61% year over year. That's the highest it had been since 2011. They also acknowledged that number, the true number, is likely much higher because most hate reports are not reported. Most hate incidents are not reported. When you hear these numbers, when you see Hamilton Police putting out these numbers, what's your first reaction?
Well, I mean, it is the reality. When I was the executive director at the Hamilton Center for Civic Inclusion, this was something that we talked about. And actually, HCCI was born out of a hate incident here in Hamilton. So it's been the focus of HCCI from its beginning. It's not surprising to the populations that are represented there. So we're talking about the Black community, the Jewish community, the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, and other religious communities. And that has been something that has been happening for the last decade, 20 years. And, how do I say this? The people don't report because sometimes the reality is that the incident or the crime is not explicit in the criminal code. So the police cannot respond. They can only keep track, but they can't respond. So one of the things when I was at HCCI with collaboration with the Hamilton Anti-Racism Resource Center and Dr. Emil Joseph, we created a website, WeSupportHamilton.ca, that anybody can post anything there, and then HARC and HCCI can then meet with individuals if they choose to. Then they can talk about what do they need, what's the support that they need, are there any other avenues they can pursue? Is it the Human Rights Tribunal? Is it the Ontario Human Rights Commission? Is it hiring a lawyer? Is it, therapy, counseling, whatever it might be? So those are the things that we were hoping to accomplish, because the reality is that unless it's a crime that is under the criminal code, the Hamilton police cannot do anything about it.
Yeah. The one thing I've learned when talking about this subject is how important it is when you're a bystander to something, to say something, to do something, to be there for the person. What's your advice to bystanders who may see or witness these incidents out in public? You mentioned the website. That's a great way to report it. But what other advice do you have for people who may be hesitant to say something when they are witness to anti-hate, an anti-gay attack?
They should speak up. I think it was in the news. I think it was in Waterloo. There was an incident with a Muslim woman, and people spoke up. You have to speak up. You have to document it, because that's the other thing that the We Support Hamilton.ca tries to promote, is that they can upload a video, they can upload a picture. So document it when it happens, because the other thing too is, sometimes when hate incidents happen, if I use a racial slur, or if I use a homophobic slur, and it's not caught on camera, then now where's the evidence, right? So I think the key thing is, yes, speak up, be vocal, but also make sure that you're either taking a picture, or you're also taking a video, or you're recording, so that when it has to go to some level of legal or criminal discussions, the evidence is right there, as opposed to, oh, well, they said X, and the person says, no, I didn't say X, but everybody in the room heard them say one thing. So I think that would be the crucial advice.
Okay, let's dive into some topics that are making headlines these days in the city, and I want to start with encampments. I've seen you out at Acorn rallies, you just covering, just as but the encampments. This has made obviously a big topic right now in Hamilton. Back in August, they made the decision to put 25 tiny homes along Strawn Street East. Now, obviously, this isn't the solution to homelessness, but is this a start?
So, when you have a leak in your house, and you have a leak in the house, you have a couple of options. You can put a bucket there to collect the water, but then in the meantime, you have to call a roofer to come and fix the leak.
Yeah.
So my response is, are we calling roofers to come and fix the leak? Or are we buying buckets to collect the water, right? Now, if you take option one, we're going to buy buckets to collect the water, then you are literally wasting money by buying buckets, and every time you have to replace the bucket. Yeah. Whereas, if you just call the roofer, and they come in and fix the hole or the space in the roof, no more leaks. So if we apply that same analogy to encampments, right, the solution is provide housing. There are empty units right now in city housing that haven't been renovated. That could be a starting point. There are city-owned properties that are not being used. That could be a starting point. And I think what some members of council are doing is, instead of looking for the roofer, they are buying buckets and trying to capture the water. So some will say, oh, they are encampment supporters. No one. Nobody wants encampments at any public space. However, if people can't go anywhere, and it's the responsibility of a municipality based on our court system, who have said you cannot push someone somewhere when you haven't provided them housing, then it's your responsibility to provide the housing. Now, the response is, well, is the provinces downloading, the federal government downloading? And this goes back to the question you asked me at the top when we started talking about what do Hamilton residents want to see? They want to see innovative leaders that come up with the solutions, right? And here you have some councillors and the council in whole, I'm not pointing any fingers, but I'm saying the collective decisions that are being made are not coming up with the solutions, right? So to me, that's where the issue is right now when it comes to encampments. You clear encampments, again, you're collecting water in a bucket, and then you got to bring another bucket and fill it up. And that's not an effective way. And the last thing I'll say is that's how people get angry that their municipal taxes are not being spent properly, which is why I use the example of the leak in the roof.
Okay, I mean, it's almost like you were peeking at my sheet here. You took my next question directly, almost word for word, because municipalities have said time and time again, we need federal money, we need provincial money.
Yes.
Where would that money go? At best practices, where would that money go?
Yeah, so there's been lots of papers and certain countries that have workshopped different ideas. Again, I talk about some current city housing units that haven't been renovated. So that there is one option. I talk about city-owned property that is not currently being used. There's another option. There's transitional housing models that have been tried and proved that also could be established. There are community organizations, there are churches that could also support, right? So to me, again, when I talk about solutions, imagine any counselor saying, look, let's invite churches, MPPs, MPs, residents, community organizations. Let's all sit in a group and let's talk about or brainstorm what some of the solutions we can come up with. Instead, we get thousands of angry folks in one room and we ask, is housing a human right? Duh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that is more of what we need to be doing, because I also get it. You can't expect solutions from an elected official all the time, but an elected official can create the environment for people to feel comfortable to come up with solutions.
You mentioned, passionate people filling rooms. Well, that happened just last week when hundreds attended an information session at the Ancaster Fairgrounds to protest to discuss the provincial government's plan for the Greenbelt, which in Hamilton, it would be to remove 795 hectares of protected land in Hamilton. People aren't happy about that. The city listened, it seems, and they might not work with the facilitator. Why do you think, if there's one thing it's that Hamiltonians are passionate people. Why do you think this issue, it's housing, it's out in Mount Hope, it's in Stony Creek, it's maybe housing that doesn't affect them areas. Why do you think this gets people so riled up?
Because there are so many issues that connect back to the Green Belt. You can talk about Indigenous land, right? We have to be stewards of Indigenous land. This is part of reconciliation. We are in September. At the end of the month, we'll be talking about truth and reconciliation. Absolutely. So there's that. There's also the fact that even the province's own task force and the two other reports that have come out have said there is enough land for housing to be built. There are groups, the Stop Sprawl groups and many others, Environment Hamilton, Hamilton 350, they've been saying the same thing. So that is why people are riled up, or that is why they are concerned about this issue, is because there is land available to be built, but no, instead, a process that we had, I think the word is preferential treatment for some people. Like, that's what's making people upset, and also not trusting what the provincial government is saying, because they said, hey, we need to build 1.5 million homes. But then why is it that there was preferential treatment given to certain people that are close to some political parties, right? So I think that's why people are concerned. And the last thing I'll add is there's a money crunch to this as well. And this is simple. If current residents can't pay their current property taxes, when you start building outside of the urban boundary, that means more property taxes, right? That means more transit, more fire, more police, more garbage, more water, everything. You're expanding the amount of services that are provided. So it doesn't even make sense financially.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what they're saying. Like the provincial government, they're putting commercials on saying, well, 500,000 people moved here. We need homes. It's like, okay, well, your plans for these homes, the land needs to be serviced. That's what we've heard from the city. Like out in Mount Hope, there's no water treatment. There's no roads. There's no sidewalks. You got to build that infrastructure before you build the housing. So if you're worried about the 500,000 people who moved to Ontario in the last year, well, homes in 2034 aren't going to help them very much.
Yes, and also too, I think another thing that hasn't been mentioned, and I know it's been missed, but I want to be explicit about it. Look, when newcomers come to Hamilton or to Canada, there's levels to it. Some folks don't have proof of employment, don't have credit history, don't have down payments for houses. So if you're building single family homes out in outside the green belt, those folks are not going to have the financial capability to buy those homes. For even economic newcomers that have their working conditions already sorted out, they also need to save money, right? A down payment on a $700K house, it's not something that everybody's carrying right now.
I would say not.
Exactly. So that's the other piece too that people are not talking about. So it makes it seem like, then why are we building these houses on places where we can afford it, and people that the process was made for are going to make $8.3 billion plus more?
Yeah. Good points made there. Let's talk about the media. You've been a guest on numerous shows, like this one here. You've been an expert in stories people have relied to you for interviews. You've been a contributor to local news, CBC News. This week, we learned that Metroland would be laying off hundreds of employees and moving community publications, including the Hamilton Community News, completely online. What's your advice to people when it comes to being a more informed citizen in a time when we see more and more newsrooms shut down?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad. Look, I can tell you the importance of community news. During the campaign, folks like Kevin Warner, I think he was the one that tweeted about it. He covered everything, you know. Yeah, you know, people might say this wasn't covered, that wasn't. But when we are talking about providing information, he covered it. He's done it for years. There are others. You think about Joey Coleman. You think about some of the other small media folks. It's earth-shattering. And my heart goes out to all the journalists that are feeling this pinch. I think one of the things is I hope that maybe Kevin continues to do that work, whether it's independently or neighborhood associations also get together to figure out, do we then now provide the information through newsletters. In Hamilton, there are certain neighborhood associations. I can think about Beasley, Crown Point, that do some of this work. The North Enders, they think they have the North Breeze, right? So
shout out North Breeze, shout out.
So I think now it's going to be critical for neighborhoods and certain areas in our city to fill that void. Yep. And I think that's how to do it, whether it's like hard print newsletters or even electronic news letters, or, because it's hard to fill that vacuum. Yeah. There's so much information that people are working on. I think about even on the mountain, like everybody would wait for their mountain news to say, okay, what's happening at Sackville? What's happening on Concession? What's happening on the West Mountain? What's going on at Lime Ridge, right? So I think now it's more incumbent on community groups and neighborhood associations to fill the void. And if there are any journalists, students out there, this is the time to also self-innovate, right? And get things done online. So that would be my response. And like I said, I hope Kevin continues to write in whatever form. Who knows? Maybe he might be on the podcast pretty soon.
What are you trying to say, Kojo? You're trying to do my job here, buddy. What are you doing? Okay, let's keep it light. We talked about a lot of issues, talked about a lot of problems, but music, something you're passionate about. I mentioned you just dropped your third album, released this month. How have you taken that passion that you have out in the community and put it into your music?
I've always done it. My first album, same thing. I won a Hamilton Music Award for that one. Most people might not know.
Shout out.
Yeah, I mean, my music is about stories, people's stories that are not usually heard. And that's what I've done for over a decade now. So sometimes, yes, my community work will bleed over into my music. But again, people that have listened to the music have said, yeah, I didn't know this, I didn't know that. And my music makes people dance. If they've seen my shows, they enjoy it, they like it, and then by that repetition, it gets them to ask a couple more questions about, okay, what was he saying in that song? Why is he using that language, right? So I think that's what music is meant for. Bob Marley, Marvin Gaye, the Stevie Wonder, Nina Simone, like they all did that. So that's the tradition of black music.
That's awesome, man. Before we let you go,
yes,
give me a reason to be optimistic about things going on. We talked about a lot of issues, talked a lot about encampments. There's a lot of people being down. Give me a reason to be optimistic about what's going on here in Hamilton.
I mean, I think we all have to start caring about people, right? If I want someone to care about me, that means I have to care about them. If I don't care about people, then how do I have that expectation that somebody will care about me when I'm down on my luck, when I fall down and I can't get up? Who's going to be there to reach out their hand and provide support? So to me, I think that's the hope, and that's the what we can look forward to. It's very important. I think Martin Luther King said this, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, right? So if we know people are dealing with stuff, let's support them so that when I'm dealing with stuff, I know that there's somebody out there saying, maybe we need to provide some support. And when we are all happy and when we all feel like we're in a good place, it's good for everyone. We need that positive energy. We need that exuberance to know that everybody is in a great place. Because if I know someone is not in a great place, how does that make me feel? And I think we need to do more of that. I know people don't want to hear about COVID, but everyone will remember, we all made sacrifices. We were all pulling together for each other. And if we remember that kind of collective agency to make sure that people are doing well, then we'll get to a good place, and that's the hope.
Kojo, I had high expectations for you as my first guest. I had high hopes for you as my first guest, and I gotta let you know you've exceeded all of them. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
Do I come back again?
We'll see. Kojo, thank you so much for doing this.
No problem. Thank you.
My thanks to Kojo for joining me today, and my thanks to you as well. Make sure to like and subscribe to CHCH Podcast wherever you get your favorite podcasts, or easier, just go to chch.com/podcast. From all of us here at CHCH, thank you to everybody behind the scenes who helped put this together and help get it out. I'm Louis Butko. Have a great day.